Well, I've seen the photos. They also have Ukraine's NATO facility.
And we are live and alive as a good note for starting well the program today. How are you doing, Larry Johnson, my good friend? Taking your, critics last week. I'm using some colors this week.
Yeah. It's looking good. They'll recruit you for a national team, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, this has only 3 stars. So this is very old T-shirt.
What is I'm not big on South American world football, as the rest of the world calls it, soccer, as we do. So what do the 3 stars mean?
So we are back at this time. We were 3 times champion of the world. Now we're 5.
Okay, gotcha.
Still the biggest champion of the
el campeonato.
El campeonato mundial. So just I'm missing something here somewhere. Okay, all right. I make it work now. So I'm also using this T-shirt because 2 days ago it was our Independence Day. So Brazilian Independence Day, 7th September, and well, this has nothing to do with the supposedly patriotic movement that hoist a very huge flag of the United States in São Paulo. Let's forget about those people. I don't want to talk about that. That's just too stupid.
I say, are the Brazilians lining up to kiss Donald Trump's ass?
I don't see that, but perhaps, I don't know. I have to call my São Paulo friends to see what they think about that.
If Brazil's going to start submitting and bowing to the United States,
it's a bit too cool for you.
Yeah, I think the time has come for countries like Brazil, India, to tell the United States to go to hell. Now, the reality.
I don't like we already discussed this several times here. The United States, I think once upon a time it was a great country. And I say that once upon a time, it's even not nice to say that, I would say. I apologize. But it's not what it is today.
Yeah. We're a bully. We are a country that's dedicated to forcing other people to submit to our will, or at least that's how we believe it to be. The reality is, we can't even beat the Houthis. So, we're living in a fantasy land. And, we just with this bombing of the attempt to murder the Hamas political leadership in Qatar, Israel needs to be ended as a nation. They need to be put out of business. This idea that they can go kill anybody anywhere. See, they claim to be, we're fighting terrorism, and yet what do? They engage in terrorism. They're killing unarmed people generally, for the most part, overwhelmingly, and so they're using terrorism to fight terrorism. Once you go down that road, you lose your soul. And if you want to come down to it, that's a big difference between Russia and the United States. It's one of the reasons that, Putin could have killed Zelensky and the top political leadership, but he's not allowing that because he doesn't want to become the very thing that those people are. And we saw during World War II, it was the United States and the Brits bombed the hell out of civilians, kill civilians, whether it was in Hamburg, Dresden, Berlin, or Tokyo. So we would bomb civilians, kill them. Oh, that's going to force the war to an end. We don't find an excuse for it. You didn't see the Soviets at the time doing the same kind of massive bombings of population centers. They did not do it. And yet the United States comes out and tries to portray them as these gross, authoritarian, vicious killers. We refuse to look in the mirror and see ourselves for what the hell we are.
That's that, Freud explains that. That's called projection.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the World War II actually ended, with someone sitting in a table signing a piece of paper with a gun on his head. Yeah, but it was the declaration of the end of the war. We should be aiming at that.
Yeah, well, that's where the war in Ukraine is headed. It is going to end in a surrender. It's not going to be a negotiated where each side has to give something up. Russians aren't going to give up, anything. It's not up to the Russians to make concessions. They've made enough concessions over the years. Every concession they've made has been interpreted by the West as weakness. So it's if you're negotiating with these people and every time they're trying to screw you, that should be a sign that maybe they're not worth negotiating with.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned this on the Judge yesterday, and this is one thing that it always pissed me off. Watching the news or reading some press of mass destructions papers, and they are always, oh, what is the Russian concessions? They don't have to. They are winning by large. Why should they stop and say, oh, yeah, well, perhaps I should give you Moscow in exchange?
Yeah, there's nothing that Russia could give that would satisfy other. If Russia said, okay, we'll die, we'll commit suicide, we go, great. Just leave the gas and oil to us, we'll be in to pick it up. The United States, and this is now becoming, it didn't start under Donald Trump. But I'll pin it on the Central Intelligence Agency because they've been, they've continued between Biden and Trump. They're using the ploy of negotiations as bait in order to trap and kill the opposition. We saw it in Russia with just on the eve of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainians launched that drone attack on the strategic air bases. That was done with U.S. knowledge and participation. And if Russia believes that otherwise, they're fools. Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, he was in a meeting to consider a ceasefire agreement that they were going to make. And because the Israelis, through the United States, knew where they were going to meet, they were able to bomb them and kill them. And then you saw just today, again, this the Hamas leadership in Doha, in Qatar, were meeting to consider a ceasefire offer made by Donald Trump, and they were bombed. Anybody picking up a goddamn pattern here? Yeah,
That's what I always say.
yeah. It's just like, and then you remember it was the June 1st. They were on the eve of having peace talks between the United States and Iran, and Trump greenlights the attack on Iran. So at this point, and I just saw a news reported yesterday that Pezeshkian and Arakchi of Iran are reportedly willing to sign an agreement with IAEA that, haven't they learned a damn thing? Apparently not. Hopefully the legislature will tell them, hell no, we're not going along with that. So, the reality is there is no credible road forward for negotiating with the West. The only way to deal with the West is to destroy it. That's going to be the reality. It's not going to come to its senses and say, let's be reasonable, let's talk. I put a video up yesterday or 2 days ago of Vladimir Putin in 2001, standing with George W. Bush, who's laughing like a jackass. And Putin is reading a declassified Soviet document in which they detailed how the Soviets approached NATO and said, hey, let us join, and there'll be in the security interests of all sides. And NATO said, go to hell. No, we don't want you. Because if NATO did that, they'd no longer have a reason to exist. So they've been rebuffed and rejected at every turn by the West. And still Russia comes back trying to say, well, let's see if we can negotiate. But I think they now realize there is no negotiation with the West.
It's impossible. The mentality, the Eurocentric mentality. It's still Eurocentric. I'm sorry to say that. You just adopted that by some, I don't know which reason, but the Eurocentric mentality is very different than the Asian mentality, even the African mentality, the South American, the Ibero-American mentality. It's dominatory.
Yeah.
I see the end of the Cold War, and as you mentioned, this approach from Russia or from the Soviet Union to say, hey, let's be a big team. That could be the true Pax Americana, the moment where the word, okay, we have a worldwide police, which is needed. I mean, what's the UN for? The UN works for nothing. If you don't have a worldwide police, you can decide whatever, you can say whatever, you can condemn whatever. There's no one to enforce that.
Right.
That's where international law dies. Yeah, but darn, we mixed a lot of subjects for the beginning of the day. By the way, I think Iran was supposed to be voting the possible exit of the JCPOA this week, isn't it? Wasn't it yesterday? I didn't see the result.
Well, they keep talking about the snapback, and if Germany, France, and the UK decide to impose tariffs for the sanctions on Iran, it's already been strongly rejected by Russia and China, and they declared it illegal. So we'll see. This Iran, I think, is in a potentially different position. Well, not potentially. They're in a different position now than they were 10 years ago. When they first signed the JCPOA, they were really isolated. And, even Russia and China at the time are willing to weigh in on sanctions against them. Well, a whole different ballgame today. Iran's now part of BRICS. Iran's got good relationships with both Russia and China, and it's developing good relations as well with India and Brazil and the other members of the BRICS. So what we're looking at here is Iran's got a path out of economic isolation that was imposed over the last 10 years. And, whatever threats the West is making, I don't think carry the same weight that they did even 4 years ago.
I don't know, for sure not. Larry, I would like to focus a little bit on the United States, which, by the way, I was reading your blog, Sonar 21. I don't like to call it a blog. I think it's an excellent place for information. Blog is underestimated by people. Your last posts there, the articles there, they were mostly about the United States. So I would like to start by claiming that the United States, it looks like the United States just won World War II by itself without anyone's help.
Yeah, well, when you watch Hollywood, it's all about what the U.S. did, and the U.S.
Rambo.
I've always I make fun of John Wayne in the movie Sands of Iwo Jima, but Patton, that movie again, it perpetuates the myth that this was that the United States did most of the fighting, most of the dying, and we were the key to the victory. Well, whether it's the war in Europe or the war in the Pacific. In the war in the Pacific, as an example, I think 99.9% of all Americans believe that, we were the ones that brought that war to an end, and with no help from anybody else. It was all about us. The story's never told that 70% of the Japanese army, at least that's, when I did the research over the internet, that's what the number comes up. 70% of the Japanese army was in China, not out in the Pacific. So the Chinese, by virtue of fighting the Japanese in China, and that war really started in earnest in 1938, but I think the Nanking Massacre took place in 1937. So give it, 8 years, the Chinese were fighting. You had both Chinese nationalists, the Kuomintang, and then you had the Maoists, the communists. But 3.5 million Chinese soldiers died, and on top of it, between 15 to 20 million civilians. So almost a grand total of maybe 24 million, the most extreme. Whereas the United States Marines, soldiers, sailors, they lost, only 110,000 died throughout that war. So, it needs to be put into perspective. We didn't come close to shedding the kind of blood that the Chinese did, or the Russians on an even grander scale. Russia's total casualties were 27 million, with 10 to 11 million soldiers dead. I mean, just mind-numbing numbers. And
Also, the German front, the Eastern German front, was about 5 million soldiers, while the Western one was about 500,000, so 10 times more.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was really more like 1/3, 2/3 to 3/4, depending on which point in the war. But the reality is the United States and the Brits never fought the best German military units, and never fought the largest number of units. That was the Soviets, then the Russians. So again, we've got a real skewed view, and it's important, or it's relevant, because by failing to acknowledge what Russia and China did, Russia and China even had, even though they were at odds, sometimes, particularly in the communist era, once Mao took control of China. Nonetheless, during World War II, the Soviet Union was a major supplier of military equipment and training and financial support into the Chinese nationalists, even fighting the Japanese. So there is at least a history or a precedent for Russia and China to work together militarily.
Yeah, exactly. So still in the United States, Larry, what about this thing, of renaming the DoD, the Department of Defense, to Department of War, DOW?
It's just, it reveals who Trump is. He's not a president of peace. He's a president of war, of conflict, enabling genocide around the world. So, yeah, I think it's a stupid move. And it just, because, he says, oh, who wants to be on defense? Oh, I do. It's called, in baseball, football, the best offense is a good defense. There's a reason they've come up with that saying. We don't need to be on the offensive around the world. We've done enough. We've killed enough. We need to put our hands in our pockets and mind our own damn business.
Yeah. Well, at least it's more honest, let's say.
Yeah.
We can call it that. I would like to point again to this Venezuela thing, Larry. You made an excellent article about the Venezuelan drug dealing boat, which, when I saw the images, I was like, well,
The
That ain't a
alleged,
boat.
the alleged drug dealing.
Alleged. Yeah,
Yeah.
alleged.
Yeah.
Alleged. When I saw the video, I thought, that ain't no drug dealing boat. Well, yeah, you can carry a couple of marijuana here and there, but not a big deal. But your post, your article was much more interesting than just a visual analysis. You use some math over it and knowledge, of course.
Yeah. Did you see anybody else in the media do that? I think
Oh,
I'm the
yeah.
only one. I think I'm the only one. It's just they're lying about Venezuela. Number one, that boat could not have, ostensibly it was traveling from Venezuela to the United States or maybe the Dominican Republic. I've heard two different stories. It couldn't make it either. It would only go 1/4 of the way there. Then they'd have to fuel up. Well, yeah, to fuel up, you've got to put in 220 gallons of gasoline. So you got a 5-gallon can of gasoline. They're called jerry cans. They and those can weigh like 10 pounds a piece or more. You'd need 40 of them, and that would get you another 250 miles. Then you'd need another 40 because the trip's about 1,000 miles. So you're going to need at least 120 of those cans, maybe more. Where are you going to stack them? You should see those on the deck of the ship. You don't see those. And then you got the deck covered with jerry cans. Where the hell are the drug bundles? Oh, not a lot of room. Maybe all those 11 people were sitting on them.
Or they swallowed.
Yeah. Oh my God. So the whole thing was a lie. It's just it's a complete lie. And yet, just like Israel did today, trying to kill Hamas, we decide, hey, we think they're bad, so we can blow them out of the water. We don't have to have any proof. They don't have to be posing a direct threat to us. We can just go ahead and kill them. And you start setting that precedent, then one of these days somebody's going to do that to Donald Trump or to Bibi Netanyahu. Then then it's karma time.
Karma time, like that. That's very important. When I saw that, it's basically what's been happening. Killing people at will with no reason why. I had a program once with Nebojša Malic, which is who is an RT journalist. Also has a YouTube channel, but it's in Serbian. He used to live in the United States. Now he went back to Serbia after the pressure over RT and all the RT reporters.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something very interesting. It's a Pandora box. There was a lot of work done to stop the political assassinations in Europe after World War II. And they managed, and they are opening this Pandora box again. Fitzo got shot 5-6 times on the chest, survived. Good for him. We had, and now, as you mentioned, modus operandi. We can look at these things, and hey, they tried to kill the Iranian prime minister. Well, perhaps they also killed Haizi, who died on an helicopter.
Yeah. Well, I think now I think it's increasingly likely that his aircraft helicopter was sabotaged by the Azeris, and he was killed. That was an intelligence operation. I'd bet a lot of money on that.
See, some time ago, 1 year and a half ago, we were talking about shit happens. Now we're not thinking about shit happens anymore.
Yeah,
that's bad for the West. So yeah, since we also mentioned Israel and the attacks on the Hamas leadership, just watching these days, and Israel just seems to go back to the comfort zone, like killing Palestinians at will. And we had this terrorist attack as well in Jerusalem.
Yeah, well,
coincidentally, just before Netanyahu's trial.
yeah, well, this is, when you push and punish and abuse the Palestinian people, I'm not surprised that some finally say, we're going to kill as many Israelis as we can. Fully understand it. The Israelis want to holler and cry about terrorism. They've got no room to talk. They're the biggest terrorists in the world today. And here, they've bombed Lebanon, they've an active war. They bombed Syria, an active war. They've bombed Yemen, an active war. They bombed Qatar, another active war. They bombed Iran, an active, they think they can go bomb whoever the hell they want and with no consequence paid. One of these days, that bill is going to come due, and it may lead to the destruction of Israel. There was a time, at least for me, where I considered myself a strong supporter of Israel. I thought Israel was on the up and up. No longer. I realize Israel is a disease on the international political body. It's like a cancer. And it should be dealt with as a cancer, as an illness.
It spreads very fast, and you can either kill it or kill you, or it kills you.
Yeah. Well, and that's to describe it as a cancer on the world body. If we imagine the globe as a body, and Israel is a cancerous bit, but just like regular cancer in your body or my body, it kills you. It kills the world. So we're not just talking about eliminating Israel. We're talking about a threat to the entire world order coming out of this nasty, demented little sick country. And it's unfortunate that, in its founding, at least in the principle, as ideally expressed, there was some notion of justice and fairness, even though from the outset they expelled and attacked the Palestinians, the people who had lived there for years. But this is, I think Israel today crossed a red line. Well, we'll find out if Qatar's got any balls or not, or if they're just a bunch of prison bitches. They're going to do what the U.S. tells them to do. Give Donald Trump another big ass plane. Or is Qatar going to say, no, you don't get to attack us. Shut down Al Udeid Air Force Base. Shut it down. Go out, blockade it. Don't let anybody in and out of the base. And tell the United States, close this down, get the hell out of our country. You're no longer welcome here. That would be a major blow to the United States. And that's the kind of message that the Qataris need to send Trump. It's the only thing he'll understand. But I don't think that'll happen. I think they'll just, go along and accept an apology, or, Donald Trump will offer the emir a back rub. Who knows?
What the hell is wrong with those countries or those people that rule those countries, Larry? Because, how many Gaddafis, Saddams, and Assads they must see to learn that it can always happen to them in a minute.
Yeah. I mean, this, if the United States will allow Israel to try to murder Hamas leaders who are in Qatar, who says that if Qatar becomes inconvenient, which the Israelis constantly describe him as an enemy, become inconvenient. But you see, the Qataris know that the Israelis are a bunch of damn hypocrites, because the money to fund Hamas has come through Qatar from Israel. Nothing is as it seems on the outside.
Many people don't understand that, and they did a very good job by building the mind of people that just see those are terrorists, those Islamic terrorists.
Right.
They don't know anything about Islam. They don't know who finances those groups, where those groups are created, how they were born. I didn't know that. And I always believe these last 3 years have been the complete defeat of narratives, Western narratives.
Again,
We will see the end of it.
Prior to the start of October 7th, the Palestinians, according to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, and I've repeated these statistics before, but I'll do it again for the sake of the listening, viewing audience. The Palestinians, not just Hamas, Palestinians as a whole, so Palestinian Islamic Jihad, other Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, others not affiliated with the group. Between August 2000 and April 2024, they killed a grand total of 1,527 Israelis. That's a major terrorist group. Are you kidding me? That's 4 a year over 25 years. Whereas Israel, in the spate of now 2 years, has killed at least 62,000 and probably more like 200 to 250,000 Palestinians with at least 20,000 children. Who's the terrorist?
I guess when you drop big bombs, you cannot be classified as terrorists for some reason. I don't know exactly why.
Yeah, you buy enough members of U.S. Congress, you can get away with anything.
Spot on.
Yeah,
as always.
The best Congress money can buy.
That's true.
Yeah,
buying Brazilian Congress is not that worth.
Yeah.
Perhaps not that expensive as well.
You get more for your bit more bang for your buck in Brazil.
Exactly. Okay, let's metaphorically move a little bit to Ukraine now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You and Nima. Hey, let's move to Ukraine. No, you go. I'm staying here.
Not even metaphorically.
Yeah.
All right. So this week we had they put the invitation to Zelensky to go to Moscow to decide the war, and then Zelensky's response, which was very adultish. No, you come to Kiev. What do you think it's going on? Where are we on the situation on Ukraine, Larry?
Russia's going to win the war militarily. There's not going to be a negotiated end. So, people keep longing for that, talking about it. It's a fool's dream. Not going to happen. Russia's winning on the ground. They're continuing to attrit the Ukrainian military. And you even had Syrskyi, the Ukrainian top general, admit that basically his forces are outnumbered now 3-1 by the Russians.
Which is on war math, it's the minimum when you are on attacking. So,
well, yeah, the conventional wisdom is that you need to have if you're the attackers, you got to have a 3-1 advantage. But Russia showed early on in the war that wasn't true. I mean, in the first 3 weeks of February 2022, or the last 2 weeks in February, last week in February, and then the first 2 weeks in March, Russia was outnumbered 4-1 by the Ukrainians, and yet it occupied and controlled significant amounts of territory. It was only as part of the peace process that Russia agreed to make a gesture by withdrawing the tanks that were then north of Kiev in a position to strike. And as it withdrew, then the Ukrainians turned around and began accusing Russia of war crimes as part of a British operation. And then Russia had to sort of reconfigure, rejigger its military strategy. But now, with a 3-1 advantage, but they're not launching human wave assaults. They're using drones, they're using bombs, FABs, they're using cruise missiles. So and artillery. before they start moving troops into a particular area. And all of that firepower is decimating the Ukrainians. They've tried to mount some counterattacks, and I think candidly the Russians let them because they know it'll feed them into a killing box, and they can kill the Ukrainians. So that's what's going on.
Yeah, I remember first episode that we recorded together here, and I also remember listening to you on Gonzalo Lira's channel back at the time, and what you were the only person that pointed the obvious thing that I myself, when I look at that news, I was like, wow, the 40 kilometers line of tanks, you remember that were going into Kiev, and the media was saying, well, they don't have infrastructure to fuel the tanks, they don't know how to do war, Russian sucks, all those things. And you were the only one who said, well, if you have 40 kilometers of tanks just waiting there, why can't you destroy it?
Yeah. It was very, it's not complicated. You don't have to be Clausewitz or Sun Tzu to figure that out. You just, in fact, the idea would be blow up the tanks at the end of the column, blow up the tanks in the middle of the column, and then you got them trapped. They didn't do that. So you have to step back and say, why? Was it lack of capability, lack of weapons, a combination of the two? There was, but they didn't do it. That's what we know for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Still on Ukraine, just one last thing about Ukraine. These attacks, I haven't asked you this last week. The attacks that Russia did on European, what was it?
They thought it was like a British consulate or something.
A British consulate and stuff like that. How do you see this as, in a I told you point of view, like this is what I'm telling you now, stop, or something like that?
Well, despite all the Western propaganda, Russia has been very cautious in hitting civilian sites. There have been very, very few civilian casualties. And how do I know that? If there had been significant, we'd know their names. We'd see the faces. We'd see the pictures. We'd see, the Ukrainian propaganda machine would be all over it. But they're not doing that because most of the targets, the vast majority of the targets that are hit are military, and the people dying are military personnel, some of them foreign military personnel. So Russia is going to continue this war of attrition, and there's going to come a point at which the Ukrainian army will break. They won't be able to sustain it.
Exactly. So, Larry, I know we are on rush time today, but I want to ask you one last question. I think this is a quick question because we got time. We got time because it's very recent. Just today, it happens to be a big movement in Nepal. And we've been talking about Nepal for some time, pay attention to Nepal, stuff like that. Is it a color revolution or is it an actual revolution going on there?
I really don't know. I mean, it looks, I'm sure there's an element of color revolution to it. But, let's be candid. How important is Nepal? It's basically a buffer between India and China. Okay. And so, they're talking about corruption and they've, the only thing people know about Nepal is that's where rich white people go to die, up on Mount Everest. Yeah. They go there to die or get frostbite, and make all these Nepalese Sherpas, they have to carry all this shit, it's just, it's like, I'm going to go say, I climbed Mount Everest. And I had my slave boy here carrying all my shit because I couldn't carry it. What kind of accomplishment is that? And they pay, I'm not. It's in the tens of thousands, maybe upwards, closing in $100,000 to go indulge yourself this crazy fantasy and run a good chance of dying. It's absurd. So that's Nepal. Or you get the Tibetans. It is, if there is outside influence trying to stir this up, it's just I would call it demonic, because there's no strategic purpose served by it other than just that, hey, we can do it. We can break them up. We can destroy them.
Yeah, it's just interesting that this happens like less than a week after Modi went to China, and they put a lot of those statements saying how China and India are so best friendies now, and now they're looks like someone is lighting up some matches with some gasoline to see to.
Well, again, I think what's going to happen out of this is both Russia and China will come together to say, we're going to help manage this, and maybe Russia get involved too. See it for what it is. But it's not like the Nepalese have a major army that they're going to invade India or China. Please
take control of the two most populated countries of the world.
Yeah. By a little country. I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure what the population is. I'd guess it may be around 3 million, if that many.
It's
in fact
useless.
Let's
fact check that.
Yeah. What is the population?
30 million.
Is it 30 million?
30 million. Wow, that's a lot of people. Still far from 3 billion, but
yeah. I mean, that's so they've got basically the population of Beijing. The entire
in a Sunday summertime.
Right.
Probably. Yeah,
what is the largest city by population in China?
Let me see.
Hang on, is it Beijing or Shanghai?
I think it's
Shanghai.
Shanghai.
Yeah. Okay, Shanghai.
Chongqing, actually.
25 million.
25 million.
So, like I said, it's size of Nepal.
Yeah.
You can take all the people in Nepal and say, hell, we're moving you to Shanghai. Yeah.
We already have built buildings there. They're empty.
Yeah.
The Chinese buildings that nobody understands why they are empty. 5 years later, all filled with people. Nobody understands that. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Larry, I think I ran out of questions today. Do you think there is anything that's very important that we just mentioned before we leave?
No, we talked Venezuela, we talked Doha. So we've got the major focus right now. The West, the United States still believes it can collapse the Russian economy, which is it's craziness. But you've got a lot of people that are not thinking analytically about this.
Yeah, I wonder where are the good, deep state analysts? Well, here at the Press of Mass Destruction, of course.
Of course. All right, my friend.
My friend, thank you very much. Remember, everybody, to like, share, subscribe. Follow Larry on Sonar21, and see you next week.
Yeah, bring a more up-to-date shirt next time, okay?
All right, I'll try to buy one.
All right, later. Bye-bye.
Take care. Later. Bye-bye.